Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good. Let's be better. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. Today I have as my guest a guy named Erik Luhrs. And Erik Luhrs calls himself, and it's called by others, the Bruce Lee of revenue generation. And I was referred to Erik, and last week we recorded a podcast. And it was a pretty good episode. I liked it. But after the episode was over, Erik and I started talking, and we hit on some much better shit than we talked about in the original podcast. And so I said, let's start over. Fuck that. Let's start over and do this thing the right way. So I want to welcome Erik Luhrs, the Bruce Lee of revenue generation, to the No BS Podcast. Welcome, Erik. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, especially the second time out.
Yeah, we hope we can get it right this time.
Yes.
The reason I want my audience to listen to us today, or to listen to you today, is you help people increase their profit by increasing their purpose, which to me is a fascinating topic. And it's one we kind of got on, or I caught on that we were getting there after the podcast was over. Erik, take a minute and tell us your story. How'd you get here? How'd you become the Bruce Lee of revenue generation? Can you get us there?
Let's see. So started out in corporate America 10 years, and then 3 years as a management consultant, and then into business coaching, and became fascinated by the subconscious mind. And the reason I became fascinated in the subconscious mind is I'm like every other human being. I'm messed up. So I wanted to find out what was making me not tick right.
Why am I messed up, right? Yes.
Yeah. You know, why am I messed up and everything? And so I became interested in the subconscious mind. I became interested in spirituality. I studied neuro-linguistic programming, and I was also doing, years and years in martial arts. And then as a business coach, I wanted to focus more. It was an interesting time. I was actually a professional organizer, and I helped people organize their homes and offices. And then I realized,
not like Barack Obama.
Not like
a community organizer.
That was a community organizer.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Professional organizer helps people organize their homes and offices. I realized human beings, their physical space is a manifestation of their internal space, of their brain space.
Ooh.
It's just their brain playing out in the real world and their mind and everything.
Ouch.
So that's how I got interested in the subconscious mind. So I switched over to being a business coach. I'm studying NLP, and then I wanted to go back into corporate America. I didn't want to do management consulting anymore, but I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I focused in on sales, right? I said, okay, well, where can I apply NLP the easiest? So I focused in on sales, developed the Guru's selling system, wrote the book Be, Do, Sale. And the Guru's selling system was basically designed to help salespeople tap into their subconscious mind so they could access that and sell more and kind of play with the subconscious mind of their prospects and everything. Then I got interested. I heard Drucker's quote that the aim of marketing is to make sales superfluous. So I said, that sounds cool. And I studied marketing, focused in on lead generation because that's what really mattered to me. I thought was the most important part. So I realized most lead generation is aimed at people's conscious minds, which was pointless. So I developed a subconscious lead generation method. So I'm, kind of moving up the river here, moving up the machine. And then I said, okay, what if we out Drucker? Because if marketing makes sales superfluous, how the hell do we make marketing superfluous? And that's where I came across positioning. I said, okay, great. I'm going to study positioning. There was nothing out there really except a book or two, and not much information in them. So I ended up teaching it to myself by studying a whole bunch of different people and whatever.
Positioning is branding. Is that the same thing, or am I in the wrong place?
No, positioning comes after you. Well, brand, there's aspects of how you go to market language wise and visual wise in the brand. But ultimately your brand is comes from your core. So your position can change. Like in martial arts, you move around. So that's your position, right? So your positioning can change. But I developed this methodology called peerless positioning, and that ultimately brought me to where I am, what I'm doing now. And in terms of the Bruce Lee thing, that actually was an offshoot from a quote or a statement from one of my clients years ago, who, when I was quoting Bruce Lee to him several times in a phone call, finally said to me, you're like a Bruce Lee of sales. And that nickname morphed over time depending upon what I was focused on. And ultimately, I realized my biggest thing that I'm helping companies with, at least, is revenue generation. So that's the tagline, and that's kind of the story of how I got to here. But here now really is, as you know, is me looking at and understanding that there are people out there that they don't just want to build a business, they want to build they want to have a life, not just a lifestyle, but a meaningful life. And one of the machinations that they will do that through is their business. And so that's really kind of where all this apex is too.
So you and I had this conversation, and we talked about some cool stuff last time. And after the podcast was over, I said, I'm fascinated by what you're talking about. I said, I'd like to learn more. And you said, okay, I want you to think about these 3 questions.
Yes.
And the 3 questions, I'm just going to lay them out there. Let's talk about each one time. But the first question was, who do you want to be when you grow up? The second question, I believe, was, what are you hiding and why? And the third question was, oh shit, what was the third question? Who are you?
Why are you?
Why are you? Yeah, why are you?
Yeah.
Or
why am I, if you're asking yourself?
Yeah, why am I?
Right.
And so I sat there and I was like, okay, that's some deep shit. And I said, I'm going to call you later, talk about this. And then I pushed my pen around the page and I started freaking sweat. And my head started pouring sweat. And I said, holy shit, there's a lot here. And then we had further conversations. But let's dig into this first. Tell me about those questions. What are we doing with those 3 questions anyway? What's the purpose of asking oneself those things?
Well, so who do you want to be when you grow up? So these are all questions that you ask yourself. Who do I want to be when I grow up? And the second half of that question is, and how do you know when you're growing up? But who do I want to be when I grow up is wherever we are right now in life, there's a further vision, right? I don't know that I've ever met a human being who said, everything in my life is perfect right now. I have everything I want right now. I desire nothing else. And if I drop dead right now, I would feel completely fulfilled and that my life, that I had accomplished everything. As a matter of fact, they're sitting there saying, I'm just waiting for death because,
Yeah, right. What else?
I've come to the bottom. Yeah, I've come to the bottom of the cereal box of life.
Right. What else?
I found my prize.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
I think there are people who would say that, right? But they're people that are,
they're lying. But they're lying to themselves. They're lying to you. Everybody wants something.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and when you say that, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want this house, this car, this vacation, this guy, girlfriend or boyfriend, or this physique, or this level of health. Yes, and there's all these things that we want. But there's also, but ultimately, I study a lot of spiritual stuff, and so Abraham Hicks is one of the people teachers I ascribe to.
Hicks,
but if you Google it, it's going to be surprising what you find. But Abraham says, we want everything we want because of the way we believe it will make us feel. We want the things we want because we believe in the having of them, we will be happy. So Abraham then says, if all you did was simply focus on being happy, everything you want would come to you. And it seems so simplistic. And I heard it years ago, and it sounded logical, and I didn't believe it. And so I ignored it.
This is the secret kind of stuff?
This is like the secret kind of stuff. This is what the bleep. This is all that kind of stuff. And I heard it, and I was in personal development, and I was like, yeah. But I never really tried it, right? I was like, okay, I heard it, I loved it. And then the next day I'm like, all right, tactical, practical, bust my ass for years. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole. The point of the question is, okay, so now you're saying, okay, what is that next vision of myself? Or what is that, like wherever I am right now, if I was to say, this would be me when I'm grown up, it would look like and feel like and be like this. And then how do you know when you're grown up is, when do you give yourself that moment, that realization, that pat on the back, that birthday cake, whatever the hell it is, how do you know? Because if you look back at your life, there's probably been a whole bunch of stuff that you said, okay, when I have that, I'll be a grown up. When I have that, I'll be a grown up. Yeah. I'm 50 years old, I'm married, and I have 3 beautiful children. And I realize on a physical level, I'm grown up, and I realize, as I was joking with you the other day, I said, but emotionally, I feel like I stopped at 16 years old.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm 50, yeah.
So
couldn't drive at night.
Yeah, exactly. So, but so there's got to be that point where you say, okay, I'm going to give myself that moment when I'm going to be grown up, and yet you never do. But it's like we keep going on. So it's like this carrot, it's on the donkey with the carrot in front of it, and it just keeps walking forward. That's really, the thing. But
that's what I struggle with is in my little career, I keep putting these when I get there, things will be okay. As soon as I get this done, it'll be, but there is no fucking there. I mean, I haven't found the there. There's always the next level, which again, and maybe just because I'm ambitious, maybe it's because this is what I'm wired to be. Maybe I have to do this, right? But there is no there. I've completed all these things, and I still have, and I've bought a lot of things, and I've lost a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there is no there. There was never a complete of that.
Right. That's the whole point of I mean, if we start going down the rabbit hole, that's the whole point of manifesting as a human being for a particular period of time at a particular, point in time, is to have these adventures, to have because we think, well, don't I want to be born just to have money and praise and the most beautiful physical partners heaped upon me? Wouldn't that be the ideal life?
Right.
But that can't be the ideal life, because how do you know joy without sorrow? How do you know abundance without lack? How do you know love without loneliness? So there has to be these things. And even, so really this what do I want to be when I grow up is really a trick question, because you're never really going to grow up.
Right.
And how will you know when you're grown up is like, really what your best bet is to kind of lay out those milestones. And when you lay out those milestones and you get there, when you get to those points, reward yourself. Let yourself know, hey, I accomplished this. Because what happens is that if you don't, then you kind of always feel like a child. And when you feel like, a child your whole life, and you may say, well, I'm 85 years old or whatever. Yeah, but you feel like you never grew up, or you feel like you never stepped into that adulthood. Then there's this part of you the part of you that makes you feel less than. is always there, right?
Yep.
Because I haven't achieved the right to be this, say this, do this, have this. Why? Because I'm still a kid.
Right.
Only when I'm an adult. So you have to give yourself those milestones and say, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this. And we all have, this is all things that we all have to learn, because I'm the guy that, I'm always like, oh shucks, and everything else like that. I'm like, but people will point out to me the things that I've accomplished in my life, and I'm always like,
Yeah.
but so I say this to me as much as I say this to anybody. You know what I mean? We teach what we most need to learn.
Yep.
So that's why I'm doing what I do. It's because I know it and I want to share it.
How's this different than just regular goal setting?
Well, so goal setting is like, whatever, I want to achieve $100,000 in sales or something.
Right. Yep.
This is more along the lines of intention, of envisioning an intention and then moving forward towards it. So instead of saying it's $100,000 in the next 12 months or something like that, those are accomplishments, those are goals. And certainly you should say, hey, I accomplished this and that's nice. But a lot of that stuff is very physicality, ego driven, or necessity driven, right? So it's not
like I'm going to pay off debt, I'm going to buy my wife a new car,
right.
I'm going to build a new house, whatever. Yes.
Right, but it's not. So it's nice and it suffices at the physical level. It doesn't, because again, we're here to experience joy. We want the things we want because we think that they will make us happy, but happiness is what we're really after.
Yes.
So when we set these intentions, as opposed to a specific goal by a specific day or whatever, when we set these intentions, like so instead of saying I want to make 100, like you're a salesperson, I want to make $100,000 in the next 12 months. If you had an intention that was, I want to be a better partner for my clients. You see, there's no number attached to it.
Yeah, it's not tangible. Yeah, how do you measure when you're there?
Right. And it's a feeling. So
Okay.
that's what, so how will I know when I'm grown up? Well, what would you be feeling? What would that mean? So give me, and this is what I call experientializing. There's the idea of visualizing, but visualizing is where I close my eyes and I imagine like I'm watching a television or something, right? I'm not in the experience, I'm watching the experience. Experientializing is when I feel the vision and then put myself into it. So when you can get to that level, and I'm probably going down a million.
No, you're good. It's fascinating.
I'm just imagining all the people listening to this.
This is
like,
only for me to be interested in. I don't give a rat shit if anybody else is. I'm fascinated by it. I love you, the sales team, but I don't give a rat shit if you like this or not. I love it.
Well, so experientializing that's when we use all of the physicality of our body, and we also tap into our higher self, to that field of energy from which we actually come. And if you want to study quantum physics, you'll start learning that the physical body is that we think physical affects the unseen. Actually, it's the unseen that actually creates the seen. But again,
I don't want to study quantum mechanics.
Right, but if you want to study,
I'll let you do that.
But for the experientializing part, put yourself into it, feel it. Like, what would that be? So I'm gonna, so what? Being a better partner to my clients. Well, I guess I'd be meeting with Charlie, and what I realized? I don't know jack shit about Charlie's family.
Yep.
Crap, I've been selling to that guy for 5 years. I've taken him out to lunch how many goddamn times? I think he mentioned a daughter. But what do? I'm shoving brochures down his ass, the entire time that he's choking on a crappy steak. And so what would happen if I became a better partner? What does it even mean to be a partner? So all of a sudden, all these worlds of exploration open up for you. And I know that the initial thought is, well, I don't have time for that crap.
Right.
You know, I got to go, go, go. Well, here's a question. What if becoming a better partner for Charlie made Charlie know more and understand it and resonate with you more? And then Charlie goes, well, damn, man, you know, now that I really get you, you got to talk to Tom, and you got to talk to Steve, and you got to meet Mary Ann, and you got to, and he runs that company, and she owns this company, and they are the buyer over there, and boom, boom, boom. Oh, and yeah, but you don't get that, because if you arrive transactionally, you will leave transactionally.
All right, jump to the next question, because I think this is a scary one for a lot of us.
Sure.
What are you hiding, and why? Why is that so important?
Because what we hide from ourselves and others is the thing that holds us back, or are going to be the things that hold us back. So one of my old teachers, Harv Eker, said to me one time, he's like, what you resist persists.
What you resist. All
Persists.
right.
And the reason it persists is because, and this was from my NLP training, you can't think about what you don't want to think about without thinking about it. Think about that. So they always said, you know, what if you said to yourself, don't think of a blue tree?
Right.
In order to tell yourself not to think of the blue tree, you have to think of the blue tree.
This is like golf, where you say to yourself, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water, bloop.
And boop. Yeah. Don't go there, don't go. But the thing that so when you're hiding it, when you're denying it, it's going to expand, and it's going to take up it's going to take up, you know, everything in your life, you know, this thing. So you have to learn to be honest with, first and foremost, with yourself. You know, what am I hiding from myself, and why? But what am I hiding from my family or my coworkers or my clients or
what you're asking? So let's pretend I identify these things, right? And by the way, that question just scares the shit out of me. All the stuff I'm hiding, right? I guess it's supposed to, but I do, right? Am I supposed to go then, once I determine those things, am I supposed to go share them?
Well, if it's necessary to share them, I'd say the most poisonous or detrimental of the things that we're hiding are always the things that we are trying to hide from ourselves or trying to deny from ourselves.
All right.
You know, and this is an interesting tipping point, because, as you know, I believe far more in the power of the unseen than the seen. Mm-hmm. And the things that we tend to hide are always things of the physical. You know, either things that we've done or things that we're feeling, but we hide them because we think it makes us weak. You know, to share or something.
So this is the vulnerability thing. This is Brene Brown. This is go ahead and be vulnerable and share your dirty laundry. And I mean, don't get to the old don't believe I'd have told that story, but
yeah.
And so be aware of those things, right? Put them front and center, and then begin to deal with them. Is that the way that is?
Well, accept them.
Okay.
Accept that they're there, and then what are they trying to teach you? Because any obstacle or annoyance or anything in our lives is there to teach us a lesson. So if the thing that you're denying is that you hate your father,
yeah,
you know, and every time the thought even starts to creep into your mind, you're like, no, I love him, I love him, I love him, I love him. You know, you have to like say, okay, I'm just for a few moments, I'm gonna put down my defenses, and I'm gonna play with that idea. What does that mean? I hate my father. And all of a sudden, when it starts coming, like, well, why do I hate him? And blah 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. And as you go through it, it's like you'll find that it starts to dissipate. the fear or the anger or the whatever.
The sunlight on the issue, when you bring the sunlight to the issue, it begins to go away.
Right. You go in there and you're like, okay, so I've been denying this for however many years because I was raised that you love everybody in your family unconditionally. And, you know, and I was afraid to literally say to myself, I hate X, Y, Z. So, but why? Why am I having, and all of a sudden it'll start to break apart into pieces and you'll be like, but, you know, so I'm feeling this because I had that experience, but maybe I had that experience because of this. And if I had that experience because of this, maybe really what was happening was that, and blah, 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 and boom, 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 boom. And maybe, and, oh, and wait a minute, maybe he was experiencing this because now he's here. And like all of a sudden, the big bad starts to, you start seeing, like I said, the sunlight starts coming through the parts and it starts to fall apart.
I see this as a picture like an ice floe that's breaking up into pieces, right? The whole, yeah, fascinating.
Right. But, you know, you might say, well, you know, why would something like, let's take, for example, the issue was with fathers or something like that, you know, because, I mean, for years, I had issues with my father that I wouldn't even address them to myself, right? You know what I mean? Like I would just always joke and say, yeah, you know, we don't talk much or something like that. But for years, I'm talking decades, especially even when I got into the business world and stuff, I found myself drifting towards father figures that didn't have my best interests at heart.
Interesting.
And it was like, and I never thought about it at the time, but then after a while, I'm like, why do I keep finding all these messed up older bosses and stuff like that who, you know, and trainers and teachers and stuff who just, you know, are always screwing me over financially or, you know, business wise or whatever. And so it was like, you know, it's like, so when I finally tackled it, you know, it was, you know, there was there, you know, emotional release and all this other stuff. Yes. And then it started to fall apart because it was like, okay, you know, because ultimately, you know, I started to realize, A, my father's just a human being, but B, it wasn't really my father anyway. It was the version of my father I had in my head.
You had in your head. Let's skip to question 3 because this is
sure.
Important. Question 3 is, why am I? Or why are you?
Right.
And so I sat and I pondered this and I pondered this and I pondered this, and I realized that there were 1,000 different ways to answer it. How do most people answer that question when you're talking to them?
Oh, there is no how that
most.
That is purely the point of that question, because when you hear that question, you're always waiting for a fourth word.
Yep.
Or a fifth word. Why am I driving this car? Why am I doing this job? Why am I married to this person? Why am I living in this house? Why am I, you know, here? So your brain is always like, well, what's the rest of the question?
Right.
And there is no rest of the question. And it forces the person being asked the question to go beyond the brain.
Yep.
And into the mind. And I draw a very clear distinction. To me, a brain is the CPU, physical CPU in your head.
That's the thing you can cut on.
Right. Well, it's basically like a standalone computer.
Yeah.
Right. It's got X amount of memory and horsepower, but in and of itself, it can only, like when you do a search on your computer for a file, it can only pull up the files in the computer itself.
Right.
But if I go to Google and do the same search, all of a sudden it goes from, you know, 14 results to 14 million results. So your mind is, you know, and this science now knows this too. So this isn't just me BSing here. You go talk to neuroscientists and everything, and they will tell you that they have studied and they realize that the mind exists both in and out of the body. So you're forced into your mind, and all of the sudden, the understanding you have of self and life and everything, all of a sudden it expands. So the point of the question is to push you outside of the limited scope of being a human being that you had up to this point in time, so that you can realize there's far more to me, which means if I have all of these resources, this, you know, this mind is available to me, then this physical existence, I have a lot more potentiality than I've been putting out there, because I've basically been running according to what was in the computer and not so much what I had access to if I just stuck in my spiritual Ethernet cable and, you know, and really allowed for all of my potentiality to you know, download.
It's really, that's so cool. And again, I could spend months on this. And so, but there are a couple things I learned that I want to share again. I love the two quotes that you shared. One was, what you resist persists. Mm-hmm. Boy, that is so freaking true. And that is, I mean, it's so true in my head. The stuff that I fight is instead of letting it flow. And my wife talks about this. I talk about my ego before on this thing where the ego, you know, comes in and says, you can do this, you can't do that. The ego's there to protect itself. And so I named it Frank. And I was like, shut the hell up, Frank. But what you're talking about, which my wife talks to me about too, is don't say shut up, Frank, because Frank is part of you, is to say, I appreciate your input, but how about sit down and be quiet? We'll talk in a little while. And maybe that's not exactly the right language, but that's where we're going. The second thing is that all obstacles are there to teach us a lesson. Well, holy shit, I should have a whole lot of lessons. I have learned a whole lot of lessons, right? And each one of those things that are there, we have to look at them as that. And what's the bigger picture? Why is this happening? And well, I think why is it happening is not even a relevant question, but what can I learn from this is so important as we move through life. What can I learn from this? Hopefully only once, maybe twice. So thank you. How would somebody find you if they wanted more information, wanted to talk to you about what you're doing, about your coaching and how you help companies and people?
Well, so we didn't even talk anything about the business stuff.
No, I know. Fuck it. Next time, we'll invite you back.
But so just for everybody's edification, I put all this into there is a purpose behind this, and it eventually ends up in more money as one of the outcomes. Yeah, you can certainly find me. You know, my little website is erikluhrs.com. That's ERIKLUHRS.com. And I keep saying I'm going to put more media on there, but really the place with the most information on me is LinkedIn. I am the only Bruce Lee of revenue generation on LinkedIn. And also, well, I think there's another Erik Luhrs with my spelling on there, ERIK. But
there is one of those, but he does not have Bruce Lee on his tagline.
He does, you know, yes. So you can find me there. And as always, ultimately, Google is the you know, the ultimate place to find. So if you Google me, you will trip over me 100 times before
you know. I told you when I first met you, I said I had no idea what a big deal you are until I Googled you, and then you're a freaking big deal. No BS sales team, I hope that you got something from this today. Erik Luhrs, in my conversation with him, has blown my mind, and actually I hired him to help me. So I hope that we will begin to see over the next several years the iterations and the heights and the expansion that Erik's going to help me get to. A big milestone for me today, July the 1st, my course is available for purchase now, available for download, the No BS Sales System course. It's about 6 hours of video, a 40-page workbook, all about how Walker has learned or how Walker's created a system that can work for you in your business. If you're interested in consultative selling and not being a commodity and not being treated like a lower person, not being treated like a shitty salesperson, about having real conversations and being real with people in your selling, I suggest you check out the course. If you go to my website, walkermckay.com, WALKERMCKAY today, there's a banner up there that you can click on and get you the course. And I would love to talk to you about it and help you any way that I can. If you want to email me, it's walker@walkermckay.com. But do check out the website and the course, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the backside of that. Erik Luhrs, thank you so much for coming in today. You're a great guy, and I've enjoyed our conversation very much.
Thank you.